Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Broker Breakdown, June's episode. A little bit different, recording on a different day normally than my Wednesday mornings, but that is totally okay because we have another great guest on this month. Henry, welcome to the podcast. What's going on?
James, thank you so much for having me on the platform over here. I'm honored. Thank you. And
Yes.
I'm having a great day. It's a Monday, start of the week. I love Mondays because that's usually the day where we're setting our weeks up, making sure that ourselves, our team, we're all on the same page, moving forward together. So it's a very jam packed day. However, I wouldn't have it any other way. How's your day
There
going,
you
brother?
go. Yeah, mine's good. It's coming off a nice weekend there, a nice little refresh, and you coming in and starting off on a good note. So, and like I said, this does start me off on a good note because we're doing a podcast together, and that's always giving more education and value out to all the listeners is always a positive note in my book. So, I
For sure.
appreciate you taking the time, and if you want to introduce yourself to everyone, I would. I'll give you the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So, Henry Dang with Knight and Real Estate Advisors. You can see behind me in this backdrop over here for anybody who's listening to audio only. Knight and Real Estate Advisors is the team that I'm a part of. I'm a senior partner on the team. The brokerage that we're a part of is EXP Realty. We made the switch a few months ago, and it's been great. I've been trading in real estate now. This is going to be my 6th year. I've always come from a sales background myself. I've worked in telecommunications before this, climbing up in the sales ladder, started off in a call center and just continued to move on. Then for me, myself, I was kind of at a crossroads where I asked myself, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? And what is my purpose, really? Right. And I think that, those are two questions that really stuck with me for quite a bit. And after a lot of hemming and hawing, and speaking to people who I look up to, I ultimately ended up in real estate, right? Studying while I was working full time. My first year, I was in real estate part time while still juggling my full time job. And then how I landed on the team, I met our team lead Chris at a boat cruise because we both know mutual vendors, mutual friends, and yeah, I met Chris on the boat cruise. We started chatting right away. We connected right away, and he was someone that I was following uh, before I got into real estate because I said to myself, if I want to become successful in this business, who success always leaves clues, right? So who can I really look up after, right? And so Chris was someone that I didn't know. However, he had a really big social media presence. And yeah, to cut the story short, I mean, when I met him on the boat cruise, we clicked right away. He called me the next day. I got into the office. We started chatting, and we figured we came to agreement that be a really good idea if we started working together. And the rest is history.
Yeah, look at you now, right?
For sure. There's still a lot of
So
work to be done, but I appreciate it for sure. Yeah.
yeah.
Job's not done yet.
The funny thing is that I know we discussed this last week, but we actually kind of crossed paths like a few years ago when I was working at my other office, and we just never really kind of clicked into it. And then when we kind of reconnected here, we were like, "Hey, like I think we definitely like dealt with each other a few years back." So it was kind of funny, like like full circle, right? Like, things come around and, you might lose connection with people, but then like years later, like if things are meant to be, they're meant to be. And, that's kind of where we're at right now. You're on the podcast after, a few years of, a disconnect and we're
Yeah.
back together again. So it was kind of cool. And it's funny too that we know so many of the same people as well. Like our kind of, professional circles, very familiar faces. So that was kind of interesting as well to kind of learn that a lot of the people that I know, and I know a lot of the people that so it was kind of cool.
Yeah. You know what I say about that, James, is that Hamilton is a very, as big as it is, it's a very small
Yeah,
city,
a big
right?
small town.
Yeah. Very big, small town. So
Yeah,
even when it comes to being on the team, right? So Chris was born and raised in Hamilton as well. And now I even find it funny now how, there's times where, we'll run into clients and it's like, oh, I know him from this or I know him from that, right? And we all sort of know each other some way,
Yep.
somehow, right? Whether I went to school with this person or Chris has a business connection with that person, it's funny that way. But yeah, I find in the real estate world, in the industries that we're in, we're always crossing paths one way or the other, right? Whether it's directly or indirectly.
Exactly. But yeah, it was a funny story, and like I said, I'm glad that we're back together now, and hopefully continue building this relationship moving forward. And this will be the nice little foundation piece of you coming on and sharing your wealth of knowledge in the real estate world, because obviously real estate's a super hot topic right now, especially after last week. I know it might not be your kind of area of expertise, but obviously the Bank of Canada lowering rates
Mhm.
after multiple times of not doing anything, and people were kind of applauded that and everything. But I wanted to kind of get your personal take on that, because I've talked to some people and they're like, great, they lowered rates, like awesome, might get people stir up in the market a little bit. But then you have the flip side of things where people were kind of like, I don't know if they did it at a more strategic time, and this might actually cause more issues. So kind of what's your take on that? Do you think they rushed to this decision, or do you think they did it at a perfect time for Canadians?
I think they had a great time, James. I think that's a great question too. I think there's so many different ways that you can look at things too, right? I think that here's the thing: the rates these past couple years, especially with the way that people were spending the years prior, everybody. I don't want to say everybody, but a lot of people kind of felt like they're going to be cut short real soon, right? And they're at the very end of their top budget, or it's bills are getting tight for them. So I think anytime when there's some relief, I think it's really helpful. Regardless of what situation that you're in. I think that what it does to the market, I think it's a great thing too. I think that there's a lot of buyers who are on the sidelines, and now I think that's going to cause, I don't want to say resurgence, but definitely a bit more energy for people to get back out there, at least start taking a look at listings, and be curious about what's happening and inquire. At least that's what's happening in my business right now since the rate announcement. Is that I've been seeing buyers who are hemming and hawing, or have been poking around. They've been now actually texting me back or calling me now or
Come
asking me
out of
about.
hibernation, is like I like to say.
Exactly. Yeah. Personally, I think it's a great thing. I think it's a sign that our economy is getting to a better spot, which is always good too. And obviously with the way that inflation is, the cost of spending and such, things have been pretty high lately. So I think that any relief that we can get is great.
That's awesome. And so where do you mostly operate? Are you in like the Hamilton area, or you kind of you'll take a listing really realistically anywhere?
Yeah, so that's a good question, man. I mean, for me myself, I like to keep most of my business in the Hamilton area.
Yep.
Hamilton, spreading out to the parts of the Niagara region, Grimsby, St. Catharines, even bit of Halton. I can trade anywhere in Southern Ontario, essentially, right?
Okay.
My whole thing though is, will I take on every client? If someone wants to, I trade mostly in Hamilton, but let's say I have a client and I had a couple situations like this pop up last week where someone wanted to buy in Toronto. I turned it down. Reason being is because I felt that I wouldn't be doing my client the best by taking on that business, because that's not my area of expertise, right? For me myself, it's all about how can I give you the best experience that I can on the real estate side, right? So I'm very very confident. Like I said, I was born and raised in Hamilton. I'm very very confident if you're going to come down this area here, I'm going to give you the best service because I know all the best areas. I know where you can get the best price points. As an investor, I know where you can go to. If you're looking to upsize, I know the perfect spots for you, right, to raise a family. So in that sense, there, I feel very, very comfortable. Can I trade in Toronto? Yes. Do I feel like I'd be giving my clients the best level of service? When it comes to showing requests, even, right? Traffic's absolutely crazy. My availability. But then even when it comes to the little niche things, like it's there's values differ from street to street in Toronto, right? So I just really feel like I wouldn't be doing my clients the best justice. So in that case, there, in that sense, there, I'm thankful and fortunate enough that I do have a lot of referral partners out in certain areas. That's one of the benefits of being with EXP, right? Is that there's referral partners everywhere, And I flipped a couple deals out in Chatham already, and I feel very comfortable doing so because I know the person on the other end is an extension of myself.
And I can appreciate that because, like that's, you're showing that your strength is obviously in a certain area and you're not going to, fake it till you make it. I like to say, like you're not going to go, oh yeah, I know everything about Toronto and like, oh, these are all the good spots, right? So, like I said, you're using your network and your kind of your resources to make sure that clients have the best experience they possibly can. Which again, that's what we do as well. Is we make sure that people have the best experience because then if they have a good experience, they're obviously going to come back with other referral partners and stuff like that, and they're going to go, hey, Henry, like really helped me out. Bought downtown Hamilton, found me a great spot, and like was actually very knowledgeable, right? So
Yeah,
I can
for
really
sure.
appreciate that, using your knowing when you have to, extend out to your partners or resources and actually use them. I think that's, I don't think a lot of people in a sales role, know how to do that because they think, oh, like I'm good at everything, right? And it's like, well, you can, but like, what are the odds that you know everything about Toronto, you know everything about Ottawa, you know everything about Windsor, right? It's very, I would probably say probably unlikely that those things happen. So it's nice to hear from someone that says, hey, you know what, when I need to use my resources, I'm not afraid to actually go out and do that.
That's my that's the biggest thing for me is whenever I'm working with someone is I always ask myself, how do I give you the best experience? And the best experience isn't always, getting you over asking for your property or, securing a property for, 50K under the asking price. That's not the best experience. The best experience is, hey, how do we make this as fun and as least stressful as possible for you? And sometimes that involves me having to leverage out and to, send you to someone that I feel would be a better fit than myself. Right. So
Yep. And
how does it work?
like, and
Go ahead.
you kind of said the same, like said it perfectly. Like, sometimes it's not, you have to like the people that you work with, right? And if you don't, not so to say like, but if you don't, align with them value wise, if you're not going to give them the best service that they can possibly get, it does do them benefit to, move them to somewhere else that they can. And I do that all the time with here. There's times where I go to clients and I say, listen, like, like I would love your business, but at the same time, like I just don't think that we are the best fit for you. And that's totally okay, right? They can go somewhere that, fulfill their needs a little bit better than we can. And it fits exactly what they're looking for. There's just sometimes where it doesn't work out, and that's totally okay, And I think it actually, from a sales role, I think it's a very mature and I think it's a very professional thing to say. To just, it's just we're not the perfect fit for you, but here's a bunch of options that I do think actually would be a lot better fit than us, right? And I think that speaks to who people are as, you know, as professionals if they can actually do that and say, hey, you know what? This might not be a great fit instead of just being greedy and going, oh, everything we'll take on everything, right?
I think also coming from having the mindset of abundance, I think really helps too, right? Knowing that, hey, just because I'm flipping this person, just because this person wanted to go to Toronto, doesn't mean that the next person who I speak to, that I have a conversation about real estate about, is going to want to go to Toronto either, right? Let
Yeah,
me shift my focus now to people who want to be in an area where I know that I can service you at the best level, at the highest level.
exactly, exactly.
But I want to
Well,
go back
you'd
to
probably
James. So, like, how does it work in the insurance world? Like, let's say I had someone that wanted to, they bought a house in, I don't know, let's say Windsor. Are you still able to service them, or are you only able to service in your pocket over here?
no. So we can, for us, it's a little bit different, right? Because we don't physically, with insurance, there's no physical, like tangible item that we give to people. It's more just a promise and hope when things do go wrong that we'll be there to obviously protect people. So for
Yeah.
us, like we can write business anywhere from Ottawa, Windsor, all the way up to like North Bay, Sault Ste. Marie. We can basically write anywhere within Ontario. For
Okay.
us,
Cool.
like we have a lot of technology. Like Google Maps is great, right? You can go onto Google, you can kind of look at the house. Like there's listings online too. Like normally when I'm working um with clients, like we'll get like the real estate listing, so we can kind of see all that detailed information that comes through, so we can kind of make sure that everything is up to date as much as possible. But
Yeah.
again, Google Maps is great as well, right? Like I can go on there, I can basically look at everything. I can go on top, I can like do full blown like square footage calculators. So there's a lot of things that we can do on our end, but we're not, like I said, because we're not really a tangible item, it doesn't really impact us to write business anywhere really in Ontario. So that's, again, I have clients everywhere basically throughout Ontario. Obviously, it's nice to write in Hamilton because I can go, oh yeah, like I actually like I had a friend that grew up right down the street, right? So you kind of give a more of a personal touch to it. But again, for us, because it's not a tangible thing, it's not like a make or break that we have to write in Hamilton or Stony Creek. It's just obviously it gives more of a personal touch because I can go, hey, I grew up in Hamilton, or hey, like my buddy lived right down the street, or hey, like we went to the restaurant that was literally that you're possibly buying now and taking over, right? So it's cool in that in that perspective, but it's not like I said, it's not really a make or break on our end.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Then. Cool. I didn't know that. Okay, so if I have somebody that's again looking to buy invest property out in Chatham, that's someone that can just flip over to you, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Cool.
And those, like I said, those are things that we can do any day of the week. Again, investment and commercial insurance is more what I've been trying to focus more of my, time on. So those are, again, I work with tons of investors, tons of like, custom home builders, all that kind of stuff. And we do a lot of that business here just because we have the markets for it, and our markets are very, very, competitive when it comes to pricing and coverage realistically, because at the end of the day, for me, um, obviously I want to save people money and be competitive that way, but where I really put my service and value in is obviously I'm available for people, and coverage is a big thing for me because I never want a client to call me and be like, oh, we cheaped out to save $500 a year and now we lost this coverage, but now I had to make a claim and I don't have that coverage. And then,
Yeah.
then it becomes a poor, a poor discussion from there of going,
Yeah.
hey, you know what, we're not going to fix this for you because we declined that coverage, right? I never want to have a discussion like that with a client because I think that's just doing them a disservice. Um, I'm there to protect people when they need protection, and not go, hey, I saved you $500, but I cut all these coverages out of your policy because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how we saved you money. That's just not who I am as a professional. So
Yeah.
I will never do that to my clients.
You kind of putting yourself behind the eight ball doing that in the first place, right? So yeah.
You do. Yep, you really
Yeah.
do. Because I understand like people obviously some people might go through their whole life and never use insurance. Lucky if knock on wood, if you're that lucky person that never has to use it, great. But I would say like majority of people in their life is going to use it in some way, shape, or form. If it's an accident with their car, if it's a rain or water or wind storm that comes on your home, like you're going to use it for that. Like a lot of people have life insurance, like it's people use that all the time too, right? So it's not like it's just a one size fits all for people.
Yeah.
Everyone's situation is going to be different, right? So to sit there and say, oh, like someone that's lives right on Lake Ontario, yeah, you're probably going to be a little bit more sustainable to like water claims and stuff because
Yeah.
you're right there.
Yeah.
However, if you're like way out in like middle of nowhere and like let's say towards Guelph, they obviously have lakes and rivers and stuff, but like they don't have a big body of water like Lake Ontario that's going to cause those things from happening, right? And again, then you get into the environmental thing side of things. The ground makeup out in Guelph is a lot more different than it is in Hamilton, right?
Yeah.
Hamilton at one point or another was basically out thousands of years ago, obviously, but the escarpment was basically where like the land was, and all the thing off the escarpment was technically Lake Ontario. Well,
Yeah.
Guelph is all rocks. Like our soil is more sandy, but theirs is all rock. Like it's literally all rock, right? So again, those people don't look into it that in depth, but those things all take in consideration. Like am I going to have a lot of water claims here? Like Hamilton is so susceptible to water claims. Like we every single year I get clients that have water claims just because there's so many different reasons why. But in Guelph, I'm not saying they don't happen, but they definitely happen a lot less just because the environment is only one reason why, right? I can go into probably 1,000 reasons why, but
Right.
again, everyone's situation is going to be different at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's always important to custom tailor your insurance plan to what you have going on, your environment, et cetera, right?
Exactly. And like I said, everyone's going to be different. I don't have a cookie cutter mold that I'm pouring out and be like, hey, Henry, boom, here's your,
Yeah.
you fit in here and this is how it's going to be. It's like that. We don't do it that way
Mhm.
here. We sit down with people. We actually educate people. We say, you know what, like, what are you really worried about? Like what are your concerns? And then we kind of highlight those concerns with people like, okay, perfect. We don't have to worry about that because that's here. Oh, we don't have to worry about that because that's here. And I think it's just giving people peace of mind and understanding, right? Because a lot of people, and again, I think it happens in every sales role, but I think a lot of like poor salespeople will just sell based off price, right? But they won't actually go into the in-depth wordings of, how things are actually, what are you actually buying, right? And that's where we come in. We actually go in and be like, hey, like this is how, in plain English, this is what this means. In plain English, this is what this means, right? And I think people really like that because they actually go, oh, like people, it's not just a transaction because there's a lot of transaction brokers out there. It's just
Yeah.
okay. Do Henry, your price is going to be $1,000 a month. Oh, perfect. That sounds great because it's saving me $200 a year, right? But again, that's not the way to do things. You're just basically being a paper pusher and just making a transaction of that. Which again, some clients like that, and for me, like I don't ever want to just make myself a transaction. I'm not that way. I'm there. I always like to say, use me as a financial tool. Don't use me as an enemy,
Yeah.
because a lot of people look at me as a enemy because I'm there. The rates go up and it's us. All that kind of stuff. But I say, you know what? I think it's always important to set aside 10, 15 minutes a year. Like, what's 10, 15 minutes a year really doing for you, right? Like, you're telling me that you can't set aside the 5, 10, 15 minutes a year to talk to your insurance broker and ask them, like, hey, like, what do you think about this? Or, hey, I had a question about this. Or, this came up a few months ago and, I was interested in getting your opinion on it. Like, that's not going to, make or break your life, right? It actually might put you further ahead because now you're more knowledgeable about something that you were, maybe concerned about a few months back, right? So use us as a tool. Don't perceive us as an enemy because again, if we can talk to you, better educate someone based off questions or, something that came up in the media, then hey,
That's
I
what it comes down to, right, James? I think that educating our people is the most important thing. And what you said over there, it's my perfect example to that. That just what you just said, I just automatically thought about when I offer people home evaluations. Their first thought is, "Hey, no, I'm not selling my house. Get out of
yep,
here." Right? Not to that extent, obviously, right? But no, I don't want to waste your time. I'm not selling my house. I don't plan to do it for the next 2 years, a year, 5 years, even, and that's totally fine, you know. But here's the thing, though, James. If you have stocks, would you not want to see where your stock stands in the market right now so you can better plan for the future? You have
yeah,
kids that are going to school, going to college the next 2 years, right? Would you not like to put them in a position where you can help them out potentially, right? And I'm not saying that with this home valuation, that's you could do that, but are you leaving every stone, or are you not? Are you leaving every stone unturned if you're not doing that, right?
yep,
So let's explore your options and let's just educate you on the market. Maybe you're closer to your goals than you actually think that you are, right? So that's I think educating our clients that's the most important thing. It's like what you said, set aside 10, 15 minutes. It's a better ROI than sitting on the couch and watching TV, right?
yeah. Or watching the news and saying, oh, the insurance companies are doing this, that, and the other, and it's like, oh yeah, that's true, and it's like, well, like the news is there to to buy clicks and headlines. They're not like, yes, they might be presuming certain facts, but like those facts are very stretched. And a very recent example I will use is that earlier this year, the for auto insurance, they passed a new law that basically allowed people to like opt out of certain coverages on their policy. Well, the media turned that into, oh, you can save money by doing this. Well, yes, you can, but on the flip side of things, it takes away coverage to save you money. So
Yeah.
it's not, it just saves you money. There are repercussions to you saving that money, but the media didn't tell you that, obviously. So that's where I wish people would just call. And again, a lot of my clients were really good about it. They called, they're like, you know what, what's your opinion on this? And I said to them, yeah, it was a way of trying to save people money, but it was a poor execution of doing it because you're now losing coverage by doing that. And again, I don't want people opting out of it and then going, oh, well, now I don't have coverage if this happens, right? And again, it's just weighing your pros and cons. Like now people know and they're like, oh, so it actually isn't saving money. It's actually going to cause me more money in the long term if I have a claim. And I'm like, technically, yes. So it's just about how you perceive it. And again, educating clients. And like I said, that a conversation like that, 5-10 minutes, I think everyone can spare the 5-10 minutes, give your whoever it is that you deal with your insurance a call and go, hey, I heard this on the news last night. What's your opinion on it? Or, is this actually a good thing or should I kind of steer clear of that? And like I said, I'll give my personal opinion. And, my personal opinion might not be the same as someone else. But again, that's just how I conduct business. And, I think we've been very consistent on doing that and helping people out and saying, this is what I wouldn't do this to my worst enemy. But, if you want to, then, that's your decision to make at the end of the day.
I think the media is probably the biggest enemy to the consumer. All these clickbait articles and the misinformation that's being spread. I think that does our industry more harm than anything. The industries that we're in, right? Because
100%.
right now it's like it's even before all this interest rate announcement stuff. It was all about oh, the market's tanking, this that the market's in a very bad place. Our home's even selling anymore, right? And it's like, no, if we take a look into the actual numbers and we take some time to educate ourselves, we're actually in a very healthy spot in the real estate market right now, right? Homes are the way that homes have appreciated. Now, obviously, there's been a decline since COVID. However, we take those 2 anomaly years out, where we are right now in the market is exactly where we should be in terms of natural appreciation, right? So that's like I said, I think it's all about just educating our people and making sure that they're getting the right information. And for me myself, I don't look at myself as a salesperson. That may be my title, but I look at myself as an advisor. So when I'm out there,
I use educator all the time.
Exactly, right. So when we're out there, and we're for me myself, when I'm out there hosting open houses or door knocking neighborhoods, cold calling, when I'm on social media, I feel it's my obligation. I'm not doing my job if I don't go out there and educate our people, right? That's my number one job, is to educate people so that they can make an informed decision.
Exactly. And it's a better educated decision. That's the word I would use. Better educated decision. Because if you go in blind and you have no idea and you're not using a broker or an agent and you're just kind of doing things, which again blows my mind in today's world that people still sell their homes privately.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Crazy, right?
But you cannot tell me that you are more educated than an actual, agent that does that every single day. It's just I don't buy that for a second, right? And I think you can go to anywhere for your information, especially in today's world where I can just pick up my phone and I can just type in realtor, or I can type in whatever I want to type in. And I'm going to get it instantly, right? But is that information actually what I'm looking for, or is it just what keywords are being picked up too, right? So those are also other things too, right? For me, I always look to try to get a bunch of different viewpoints because then it's I can kind of gather it all together and go, okay, Henry said this, and Mike said that, and John said this, and it's kind of getting everyone together and going, okay, like everyone kind of either has differing opinions or everyone kind of has the same opinion, right? And you kind of go from there.
For sure, man. Definitely. That's it's huge, man. I mean, doing your own due diligence, doing your own homework, I think is huge in whatever you're doing, right? Don't just follow the news. Don't just follow what one realtor says.
What Twitter says, what
Yeah.
Instagram says, what TikTok says, what the Globe and Mail says, what the government says, like all those things are obviously going to have a different outlook on things. But again, if you're doing your own research and going, hey, like that, I don't think that's right. And then looking it up yourself and finding out, hey, like other people agree with me, or other people totally disagree with me. And like I said, that's totally okay. But at least, like I said, you're going out and doing your own due diligence to find those things out.
Huge, man. I agree.
But another question I wanted to ask you too, because obviously, going into COVID, and I think Hamilton was already kind of a hot spot for a lot of people moving to, because obviously it was cheaper than Toronto, but you were still kind of right there. Are we still in that market, or is Hamilton become, I don't want to say the next Toronto, but the next Toronto, because now people I find are almost like moving out of Hamilton again. Like they're moving into like the Bimbrook, they're moving into like the more rural areas. Is that a trend that you're seeing now, or is that just kind of a fad that happened for a little bit and then kind of went
Yeah,
away?
yeah, no, it's that's a piece of data that I've followed for at least the past few years. It was very big during COVID, right? Because COVID, a lot of people were working from home, so at that point, it was more so about hey, I need more space than my one bedroom plus den now if I plan to work from home. So we saw a lot of people trickle down from the Toronto markets to Halton, and from Halton to Hamilton, right? And then from people from Hamilton, it all trickles as well, right? People from
Yep.
Hamilton are now going out to Binbrook. The Niagara region is huge, but we're still seeing that to this day here. I just helped one of our sellers yesterday, and the buyer was actually from Brampton, right? So it's still it's still something that we're seeing right now, and I think part of that too is the fact that Hamilton is so central to everything too, right? I mean, if you want to be in Niagara, that's what, a 40-minute drive from Hamilton, right? If you want to get to the GTA, again, another 40, 45 minutes, well, probably closer to an hour and a half now with all the traffic, but you get my
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah. If you
So
wanted to go to the States, it's basically an hour, right? Muskoka's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, right? So it is a very centralized, place to live, 100%.
very, very centralized place to live. A lot of highway access all around the place, and even within the city too. I think I'm a huge, huge fan, a huge advocate of Hamilton. I think like even if you want to get up to the mountain, there's some parts of the city where it's easier to access up the mountain. You can get a better home in this location. And you can still be where you want to be within the next 5 minutes, but you don't have to pay that 200K premium to get there, right?
Yep.
So yeah, just speaking on Hamilton, I think it's a great centralized hub, and I'm really really excited for all the growth. We're seeing that right now with all these high rise buildings coming up. There's a lot of mixed feelings on that. I know with people who live in the city, but I think it's great. I personally think it's great. The more growth, the more opportunity there is the way that I've always looked at things.
Yeah. And you guys, I don't know if you kind of were, you said you've been in the real estate market for 6 years, but even looking back a few years ago, but like look at how Stony Creek and Grimsby have grown, in the last few years, right? The whole waterfront has basically been just, totally rediscovered, and, look at all the homes that are there now, right? So that's been a huge, resurgence of new homes, and technically because it's those are parts of Hamilton technically. But even Bimbrook, even 10 years ago, Bimbrook was nothing. Bimbrook was a racetrack with a few homes, and now like it is just it's bumping out there, right? And
Man,
it's
can you believe in Caledonia they're building high rise condos
yeah,
there?
that's
Crazy,
crazy.
right? So it just goes to speak about the growth of where we're in right now, and I think it's exciting. I think it's really really exciting, not just from a real estate standpoint, but I think overall just growth from the areas that we're in. I think it's really exciting.
Well, the more exciting part is Hamilton's getting a Krispy Kreme donut, so that is
There we go. There we
that's
go.
great. I don't have to drive to Mississauga anymore to get them. So,
That's the
but
one thing we forgot to speak about. Hamilton is a great hub for food.
it
I'm a
it
huge
really
foodie
is.
myself. I don't know about you. I'm a huge, huge foodie myself. I pride myself on, trying out all the new restaurants, giving my own little rating. I'm not a Yelper. I'm not
Yeah.
anything like that. But,
So you
I
got the
love,
TikTok blog going.
yeah, no, none of that. None of that, man. I'm too old for that, man. I don't do that
Yeah.
stuff.
What's your
No.
favorite spot in Hamilton?
Ooh, there are a few, man.
Top three. Top three. Sorry, I'll give you top three. Make it easier.
Top three. Okay, well, I'm Vietnamese, so I definitely got to put a pho spot in there.
Yep.
My go to pho spot, the classic, is obviously Pho de Bois, the one on right on Cannon and James Street. I'm
Yep.
gonna put that number one because I grew up. Again, I grew up in Hamilton. I remember on weekends, me and my parents would always go there along with my sister every Sunday after church. So that's always gonna be my number one. Okay, as long as that thing's open, it's always gonna be number one. Two and
Yep.
three, they're always gonna shift. I'm a huge, huge pizza guy. Okay, I'm a huge pizza guy. I love my za. I actually had a pizza to myself yesterday. My go-to spot right now is Lava Pizza.
Okay.
Either the one on Barton Street or the one in Westdale. Those are two. They have two. Well, they have more than two locations, but those two are my go-tos. And then the last one, you know what? I'm on Lock Street, so I'm gonna have to give it to Chima. Okay, the Italian spot.
Yep. Yep.
That's a really really good spot over there too. It's
Nice.
nice upscale. You know, they turn it to kind of like it's a restaurant slash bar at night type of
Yep.
vibe. So it's really really cool. You dress up. I love dressing up, going out. So it's a really good vibe for sure. Definitely.
Nice. And
Yeah.
a lot of diversity there too. Not just one food group here. You're kind of all over the
Oh,
place.
everything, man. As long as it's edible, I'll give it a shot once,
There you
at least
go.
once, right?
There you go. That's good, man. It's I think just from the the what's the word I want to use here? The I think just the bad name that Hamilton gets. People are like, oh, like it's so dirty. Like you guys have the steel companies that still kind of run, and just bad crime and all that kind of stuff. I do feel Hamilton kind of gets ripped on a little bit too much. I think there's a lot of great things that go on in the city, and yeah, obviously those things do happen. But again, I think if you look at it from any city, like they happen in every city. Like Hamilton's a bigger city, so it might happen, and the stats might be a little bit more in inflamed because of that, but at the same time it's like it's not just a we problem. It's kind of it happens everywhere. It's just it might be a little bit more encompassed because it's just the size of the city, right? So
The cool thing about that is I feel like I'm hearing less and less of that as the years go on. It's perfect examples. It's all the people that are coming from Toronto. You usually hear that from people who come from the GTA, right? Oh, Hamilton, I don't know about that. I've seen all these pictures and blogs and about this, but I'm hearing less and less of that. And I think part of that too is, the city's actually trying to make an effort, I believe, to try to clean that stuff up. Obviously, we have encampments and such as well here, but I think for the most part, I think Hamilton's doing their best to, really clean up the city and give it a more positive vibe, right? And I think we see that with each year. There's always these new, not new, but the events that are being hosted every year where we're attracting people from outside the city to come in, right? I know the street that I'm on, Lock Street. I believe this week they're actually having like a street festival this Sunday, right? It's called Unlock, and a bunch of street vendors come out. Obviously we have the art crawl, the super crawl, and such, which always brings in a lot of people every year. So I think
super
a lot of
crawl's
that's still returning
awesome.
at some point. Yeah, it's great, man. It's amazing. It's the one thing I love about Hamilton. It's the fact that it's
I
so diverse.
really wish I really wish they would bring it back to like the old school Festival of Friends again. Remember that at Gage
Yeah,
Park?
that was
They need
good.
to bring that back, man. Like though that was a fun festival. Then they moved it out to Ancaster, and it kind of just made it like like it's not like Ancaster's that far away, but like it's had such a better image when it was at Gage Park, and it was just like
Mhm.
it's just that was like the culture behind it was it just being there, and I just feel like
Yeah,
even just move it. You don't have to move it back to Gage Park, but like maybe at the pier or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it just I feel like that needs to come back to Hamilton.
for
That's
sure.
a Hamilton festival.
I agree. I agree. Good point, man. We should speak about this off camera.
And another thing, actually, that now that I just said it, but look at how much development's going on at the pier. Like like the long term plans they have down at like Williams Cafe and um what was the nightclub Sarcoa?
Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
Sarcoa there, like
That
the Discovery
was,
Center or whatever. There's
that
a
was
lot of stuff going on down there too.
Yeah, now they've been talking about this for years on end. I don't know what's going to come out of it. Apparently, there are plans, but again, I'm excited. It's one of those where it's things are happening in the city, or they seem to be happening. Plans are being put in place, and I can't wait to be a part of it and see how all this plays out. I think it's really exciting and great for the city.
I think so too, because again, we are in such a unique spot where like we have water, we have like streams, we have forests, we have the escarpment, right? But I feel like the one like like a little bit of untapped potential that we have is the water. We don't have anything there, right? Because of all the factories and everything. So over the years, as things kind of start, those kind of jobs and stuff kind of get shipped off, or they kind of stop existing. Then they kind of can take over more of the waterfront to make it a little bit more
For
of an
sure.
untapped gem, realistically. And I think that will be a great start, especially down in that area where there already kind of is a lot of older homes, but now they can kind of extend it right onto the water, so you can basically say I live on the water now up here, right? So I think that's going to be And on top of that, then you have the Go train that's there now too that comes into Hamilton. I think
Huge.
that's only going to help infrastructure. People that if you want to move down to Hamilton, it's an easy instead of taking your car to work, now you can just take the Go train, right? So a lot of good things happening. Especially, I guess that's technically, would you call that what, the North End?
Yeah,
Technically,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, the LRT coming in as well too at some point. That's going to
yep.
be huge as well, right? Yeah, I bought my first property based off of potential of the LRT too. So I mean, it's there's so many big things happening in the city itself, and yeah, I keep saying it, but I can't wait. I'm super excited to see what happens with all this and how all this turns out.
I'm just a big believer on bring back the Bulldogs. As you can see behind me, I have my
Yeah.
Forge FC. I got my Tie Cats. A big
Mhm.
Hamilton sports guy, but man, we kind of fumbled the ball with these Bulldogs. Man, I just don't see them coming back. The stadium, the way it is downtown, it just
You don't see them
it,
coming
it
back, like
I don't, man. I
really.
just don't. No, I think that stadium's not an OHL stadium. That stadium's is way too big. Um, the city just hasn't invested in them as the way they should. Unfortunately, I think a lot of things that were said, and again, I have no ties to either side of things, but I think a lot of things that came out in the media about what the city told the sports teams compared to what actually is happening, I think is a little bit of fabricated.
Right.
Um, and again, like hockey deserves to be in Hamilton, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, and again, I get it. Brantford's only right there, but again, Brantford has a smaller arena. They have a huge hockey culture because obviously Wayne Gretzky is from Brantford. Um, a smaller arena, so like again, a little bit of a better vibe for OHL games, but hockey deserves to be in Hamilton, and I just don't. And the way it's gone, even the first year being in Brantford, the last season, I feel like it's going to be a very difficult path to get them back. On top of
Right.
that, too, you had like the I don't know if you're a big basketball guy, but the
Huge.
the the basketball team that was in Hamilton, they're gone permanently. They went to Brampton. Same kind of
Oh,
problem.
really?
Yeah, they
Really?
permanently left.
I
Yeah,
was just gonna say, we have a basketball team here. Obviously, we have a football team. We have other major sports leagues in Hamilton. Like they do need to bring the Bulldogs back. I'd be very disappointed if they didn't.
yeah. So the basketball left permanently. This is their first, I think, year or second year permanently gone to Brampton.
Wow.
Um, so that kind of sucks. And then the Toronto Rock, the lacrosse team that came from Toronto, is here, but then they're leaving now too because of the whole stadium problem.
Hmm.
Obviously, you got the Tie Cats, which is like huge, like like a staple of Hamilton. Like culturally, like if you talk about Hamilton, you're probably talking about DeFasco, Stelco, and probably the Tie Cats.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the newer, like I said, the newer Forge FC right behind me there. They're only a few years old, but still building out their culture and obviously playing off the fact of blue collar steel workers and stuff like that. But again, trying to build their own identity away from the Tie Cats, which again I really appreciate because a lot of um, cities, like great example Pittsburgh, all their teams are all the same colors, right? But you couldn't have more contrasting colors than black and yellow and orange and white, right? So they're
That's a
kind of
good point.
making their own identity in the city, which is nice.
Yeah,
Um,
I
but
never noticed
I
that. That's a really good point.
but I'm a bring the Bulldogs back kind of guy, and I'll be
Right.
very disappointed if they don't. So we'll see how that plays out in the next year or two when hopefully the stadium gets done in Hamilton, then they can kind of reevaluate things. But again, I just from hearing things in the media, like seeing things and talking to people internally, I just feel like I think Brand and again it kind of goes back to what's the best fit for something like this. I think Brantford actually technically is a better fit, at least for the OHL. I think the OHL fits Brantford better. So I can I'd be disappointed, but I also can be like, you know what, that actually is a better fit for them. So I can't be that disappointed.
Because that's the goal, right? Not cops, but what are they? I'm so bad at this.
First
Sorry, First
Ontario,
Ontario. Yes, for them to make their
it's
renovations.
always going to be cops to me.
Yeah, me too. So the plan was to get them to finish their renovations, and then they would, assuming they would then come back to the new stadium, right? But you're thinking that
Yes.
it's going to be a tougher sell because it's probably a better fit for them to stay in Brantford due to the some of the factors that are happening right now, right?
Well, overhead, you got to think biggest one, right? You're renting out a 14,000, 50,000 seat stadium compared to a 3,000 seat stadium, less
Yeah,
staff, less everything, right? So right there alone for an OHL team that, again, semi-pro, but they're also not making boatloads of money like the pros would be making, right? So you got to think of
yeah.
that right away, right? So again, there's a lot of other factors into it, but it's yeah, I'd be pretty disappointed if they didn't come back. But again, at the same time, if they stayed in Brantford, I would be like, totally makes sense. They were
Yeah.
rumored to go to Burlington actually too. They were going to build a new stadium in Burlington, but that never materialized. So we'll kind of, like I said, we'll kind of have to see how the next few years play out, and hopefully they can make their way back into the 905. We'll see how that plays out.
If they're not coming back to Hamilton, we have to make a huge push to get an NHL team in Hamilton. Then,
Yeah,
like if that's the case, right?
yeah, that's another another hard ask, especially being Toronto and then Buffalo.
Yeah,
You're kind of ironclad right in the middle of those two markets,
yeah.
right? So I think the way Hamilton is growing, I don't see there really being an issue because I actually believe population wise, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we're actually a bigger population than like a Winnipeg, and Winnipeg has a team.
Mhm.
So I can't, and again, I think our population growth is probably a little bit higher than Winnipeg. Again, I'm not um, I don't look at those stats of how many people live in Winnipeg, but I would think the trajectory of Hamilton might be a little bit faster than a Winnipeg, and they have
Okay.
a team, and I know their team is not the most successful either. They have a lot of their problems again with attendance and all that kind of stuff. But I think it would easily be able to fit. It's just trying to transfer those diehard Leaf fans into a Hamilton fan. That I think that's going to be that would be your roadblock for
Yeah,
sure,
100%,
a
definitely.
100%.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, man.
but wrapping things up, I always like to leave all the guests with kind of like a final, the biggest topic, or the biggest point that you want to leave people with. So, kind of, what would be your like, exiting point for people listening to this episode? Like, what's your big takeaway from the episode, or you want to leave with people?
From this episode over here, again, James, it's all about education. I think I think that's the one theme that we were really speaking about throughout the episode is how can you put yourself in the best position for your goals, and a lot of times that just starts with a conversation, right? It just starts with knowledge and speaking to not one person but many people. Depending on what your goal is, everyone has a different goal. Everyone has a place where they want to go to, and it's all about, hey, how do you get there in the most efficient time frame, right? And how do you get that? How do you do that in the least stressful way? And the bonus part is how do you have fun with it too, right? I think that's the most important thing. These things, when it comes to getting an insurance policy or buying a home or selling a home, you don't need to have a bad experience when it comes to it. I think having a great experience goes a really long way. And how do you do that? It's you educate yourself, whether it's interviewing multiple agents or knowing what's happening in the market through multiple sources, right? And I think just aligning yourself with the right people who are on the same path as you, or who have done what you're looking to do, I think that's huge too, man. I think that it's all about knowledge, all about educating yourself, and all about getting along with and having the right connections to get you to where you need to be. I think is the most important thing.
I love that answer. And my answer is going to be bring back the Bulldogs.
Mhm.
Kidding, but I think mine would be definitely using. I talk a lot about power teams, and I think using a power team is also very important because, again, I know myself, yourself, and I'm going to throw out a plug just because we both know them, but, Empire Mortgages, Alex and Aaron over there. We work
Huge.
with both of them, and it just makes the process just so much easier when you can go, hey, Henry, got this guy looking to buy a house. Perfect. Hey, Alex. Hey, Aaron. Got this guy looking to close on a mortgage. Hey, James. Got a guy. Everything. They bought the house. They got the mortgage. Now they're looking for the insurance. It just makes life so much easier for clients. I think that's what I don't think any client wants to go through a process and be like, wow, this was so much work and so stressful. I definitely want to do this again. Like
Yeah.
people don't want to do that, right? Like they want the most stress-free, easiest thing that they can do. But on top of that, the quality is going to be there as well, right? So again, I know we've harped on it at many other episodes, but I think having those power teams set up and, all communicating, especially in how our industries are so well, versed and so well connected, that why don't these things happen more often? Like why don't we work with one lawyer? Like this mortgage person or that realtor, and everyone just works together, right? I know we're trying to build that now, but again, like I talk to a lot of people and they just don't have that, right? They just go, oh, that's their problem, they're going to deal with it, and it's not on my plate anymore. And I just wish that wasn't the case. I wish just everyone had like their group of people that they worked with, and like I said, I think consumers would really, really benefit from that happening.
I think that's where we have to come in too and do a better job at that too, right? As professionals, not just speaking, you or myself directly, but just as a whole, as an industry. I think, building the right connections is huge. Knowing that, hey, if I am able to refer this over to this mortgage agent or this insurance agent over here or this lawyer, that they're going to give the exact same level of service, if not even better than I would, right? And I think that goes a really long way. But for me, myself, I pride myself on being that one-stop shop, right? I pride myself on having the connections in the industry where, hey, what do you need? Do you need a mortgage broker? Do you need a contractor? Do you need a lawyer? Do you need an insurance agent? You know, I don't want you to stress about that. What I
Yep.
want you to stress about is, hey, does this couch look good in that corner there? Those are the stresses I want you to have,
Does the
right?
paint color look good in this room?
Exactly, right?
let's
Leave the
let's have
rest
those the stresses.
exactly, right? Leave the rest to me. So I think that's the one thing that I pride myself on. I'm sure you do as well. Where we have the people in our back pocket, right? And it's not just because, hey, we work well together, but it's more about, I know that they would do a really good job for this person, and maybe this mortgage broker might do a better job, or this insurance agent might do a better job than that insurance agent, right? And I think it's, for me, it's more about, it's having that pride that, hey, I know that I have the right people for your solution, whether it's me or not
Exactly.
me, right? Yeah.
Yep. And like I said, we harped on that a lot. Sometimes it's not going to be a right fit. I always use this analogy. I'm not everyone's cup of tea. So if I'm not your cup of tea, then that's totally fine. It is what it is. You got to align yourself with the people that you like and want to work with. And sometimes I'm not you know, the tea that you want to drink on that given day, right? It just is what it is. So,
I agree.
but again, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you giving everyone your expert opinion, your love of Hamilton, and realistically, just your love of real estate. I can tell by chatting with you, like you love what you do. And again, I think that's half the battle, right? If you go into work hating what you do and dreading it, and you're just dragging your feet into your desk or into your office, I think that really can show on people's body language and just characteristics. But I think knowing you and chatting with you, I obviously shows you have a passion for it, and I can tell every single day that you actually like what you do. So I can appreciate that.
Thank you, brother. This isn't work to me. I feel, right now this is not work to me. I walk out this door when I'm done this podcast with you. I have people over here that I consider family to me. I'm going back to family now. That's how I look at it.
I don't think a lot of people can say that, so that's great, man. Do you want to give yourself one more plug before we end this off?
Yeah, for sure. Henry Dang with Knight and Real Estate Advisors. If you're looking to buy, sell, lease, invest, or you're just looking to get some real estate knowledge, I am the go-to guy in Hamilton. 905-746-5418. Also, you can reach out to me on Instagram. Dang Good Deal is my handle. I post a lot of knowledge-based videos on there, a lot of knowledge-based content. And yeah, you can email me too at henry@knightonrealestate.com.
I love the name on Instagram, by the way.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Very very catching. I like that. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to June's episode of the Broker Breakdown, and we'll check you guys in July on the next episode of the Broker Breakdown.